You ever get fined for taking a swim on your own property? Yeah, I didn't think that was possible either, until my HOA tried it. One sunny afternoon, I decided to cool off in the lake behind my ranch house. It's private, part of the land I've owned for years, and honestly, one of the main reasons I bought the place. I'd done it dozens of times before with no issue, but this time, I got a notice in the mail. A $500 fine for unauthorized use of community water access. The thing is, this wasn't community anything. The lake sits entirely within my property lines. There's no shared dock, no public entrance, no common maintenance. It's my lake. Period. At first, I thought maybe it was just a clerical mistake. Maybe someone on the board was confused. So I reached out to the HOA to clear things up. But instead of listening, they doubled down. They claimed a clause in their outdated bylaws gave them jurisdiction over all lakeside activity, even on private land. That's when things started getting weird. Board members began inspecting my property without notice. I caught one, guy walking along my fence line, camera in hand, snapping pictures like he was building a case. That's when I decided to turn the tables. Because if they wanted to play legal games over water rights, they probably should have checked whose land they were standing on first. What happened next? Let's just say the $500 fine didn't end the way they hoped. After I got that fine, I pulled out every document I had. My land deed, property survey, even old emails from when I first bought the ranch. I needed to be sure I wasn't missing something. But everything was clear as day. The lake, shoreline, and surrounding land were fully within my lot lines. No easements, no shared access, nothing. Still, the HOA board kept pushing like they had some kind of secret power. It wasn't just about the swim anymore. It felt personal. I live in a quiet, semi-rural community where most folks just want peace. But this board? They seemed to love control. They'd fined my neighbor once for letting his kids ride bikes on a gravel path. Another family got written up for using string lights on their porch. It was like they were just waiting to catch people doing something wrong. But what made my situation different was that it was happening on private lakefront property. That's what really lit the fire. Then came the surveillance. I started noticing unfamiliar vehicles parked down the road, near the lake. One day, I spotted a man, who I later learned was a board member, actually standing behind a tree with binoculars. I kid you not. That's when I set up a few trail cameras just to keep an eye on things. And guess what? Not only were they watching me, they were actually walking onto my land. That's when everything changed. Because now, it wasn't just about a fine. It was about trespassing. I reviewed the trail cam footage and saw what I feared. Clear shots of HOA board members stepping past my private property signs, walking the edge of the lake like they owned it. One even took photos of my dock and disappeared behind my shed for a few minutes, which really creeped me out. This wasn't just a disagreement over bylaws anymore. This was full-on harassment. And it made me start wondering how many other homeowners had been bullied like this, but didn't push back. I spoke with a few neighbors and found out more people had been fined over things that didn't even fall under the HOA's jurisdiction, like maintaining livestock fencing, planting fruit trees, or even parking on their own gravel driveways. The board was cherry-picking outdated HOA rules and ignoring property boundaries. A retired couple down the street said they were once threatened with legal action for putting up a wooden bench near the creek, on their land. At this point, I knew this wasn't just about me swimming in my own lake. This was about power, plain and simple. The HOA had gotten used to pushing people around, and most folks just paid the fines to avoid the hassle. But I wasn't wired that way. I'd worked hard for my land and my peace of mind. So instead of backing down, I called a property rights attorney and laid everything out. Photos, video, fine letters, maps, and all. And that's when I learned something that shifted everything in my favor. When my attorney reviewed the footage and documents, his reaction said it all. He leaned back, tapped the desk, and said, "They're in violation. Big time. Turns out, not only was the HOA trespassing, but they had absolutely no right to enforce any rules on my lakefront property. My parcel was grandfathered in before the HOA was even established, which meant their bylaws didn't apply to my land at all. The fines, the threats, the so-called water use restrictions, none of it held up legally. That's when we started building a case. Quietly. We didn't tell the board anything. I kept acting like I was playing along, just another frustrated homeowner hoping they'd come to their senses. But behind the scenes, I was documenting every single trespassing incident, dates, times, photos. I even caught one board member measuring my dock with a tape measure like he was preparing an inspection report. Another wandered right up to my back porch pretending to check erosion levels. It was beyond ridiculous. At the same time, my attorney uncovered that the HOA never formally updated its charter to include properties like mine. So, while they believed they had power over me, the documents said otherwise. That gave us legal ground to not just challenge the fine, but to countersue for trespassing. Every day felt like walking a tightrope. I knew a confrontation was coming, and they had no clue I was preparing a response that would completely flip the power dynamic. What came next changed everything. Just when I thought I had the upper hand, something unexpected happened. I came home one afternoon to find a fresh notice taped to my front gate. It wasn't from the HOA, it was from a local environmental review board. Apparently, someone had filed a complaint claiming that I was disturbing protected wetland by swimming in the lake and maintaining the dock. It reeked of the HOA trying to hit back from another angle, this time using a government agency to apply pressure. And the timing? Way too perfect to be a coincidence. Now I was dealing with two fronts, preparing my lawsuit for trespassing while also facing a formal inquiry into whether my lake access was violating environmental codes. The stress ramped up overnight. I had to pause my day job just to manage the paperwork and back-and-forth emails. But here's where it got really interesting. When my lawyer looked into the complaint file, it was anonymous. Except one section accidentally included metadata showing it came from a device registered to, a board member's address. At that point, it wasn't just legal anymore. It was personal. They were trying to bury me in bureaucracy, hoping I'd drop everything and fall in line. But that just made me more determined to push back harder. I had evidence, I had legal ground, and now I had proof they were abusing power beyond HOA rules. The pressure was building on both sides, and all that was left was to bring everything to the surface. The showdown was coming. The day of the hearing finally came. I walked into that small courtroom with my lawyer, folders packed with evidence, photos of trespassing, timestamps, official surveys, even screenshots from that anonymous environmental complaint. The HOA board showed up with a stack of paperwork too, acting calm like they were in control. But once my attorney began laying it all out, the mood shifted fast. Every document we presented chipped away at their claims. The judge paid close attention as we highlighted the legal boundary lines showing the lake was 100% on my property, untouched by HOA jurisdiction. Then came the kicker, the digital trail proving a board member had filed the environmental complaint under false pretense. You could see the realization hit them. One board member tried to interrupt, but the judge shut it down. In the end, not only was the $500 fine tossed out, but the judge confirmed the HOA had repeatedly trespassed. Based on the documented instances, they owed me $5,000 in damages. You could have heard a pin drop when the ruling was RIA, but the twist? A week later, I received a letter from the county confirming that the HOA's charter was being formally reviewed. Turns out, my case triggered a broader investigation. Several of their rules hadn't been updated in over a decade, and their enforcement authority had expired on certain properties, including mine. What started as a bogus fine over a simple swim ended with them losing control they never had to begin with. After everything settled, I finally got to enjoy my lake without looking over my shoulder. No more surprise notices, no uninvited inspections, and no more power trips from a board that had long overstepped its boundaries. The final review from the county confirmed what we already knew. The HOA's charter didn't extend to my ranch, and they'd been enforcing rules that were outdated and legally irrelevant. A few of the board members quietly stepped down not long after that, and the ones who stayed seemed a lot more cautious moving forward. Neighbors started coming up to me, thanking me for standing up when most just gave in. It felt good to know that what began as a ridiculous $500 fine for swimming on my own lakefront had sparked a real change in how things were run around here. Even the environmental complaint was cleared after a quick on-site check. Nothing I'd done came close to violating any conservation laws. It had all just been a scare tactic, and now it was behind me. Looking back, the whole situation was frustrating, but it taught me something important. Knowing your property rights is powerful. Whether it's an HOA, a nosy neighbor, or even a county official, you have to stand your ground when the facts and the law are